Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
It's Saturday evening, 16th of May 2020, downtown Los Angeles. City's quiet, 3 months into a global lockdown. The streets that never sleep are, for once, asleep. Boyd Street's closed for business. Roller shutters are down, lights are off. Normal end to a normal week. And at 1826, that changes when multiple 999 calls come in, all reporting the same thing. Smoke from a building on Boyd Street. One caller even names it. Smoke toques. Sounds routine. It's a smoke job. No flames are reported. There's no one trapped. Kind of call that any crew has run 1,000 times. This building's been keeping a secret, and in 11 minutes, that secret is going to detonate into the street. This is the Boyd Street debrief. Let's get into it. Los Angeles Fire Department is one of the largest departments out there, certainly one of the largest in the US. Over 3,200 firefighters, 106 fire stations covering a city of nearly 4 million people, and every kind of risk imaginable. They've got high-rise, wildland interface, industrial, marine, and dense urban blocks. Fire Station 9 sits in downtown LA near Skid Row, and in 2017 it was named the busiest fire station in the entire United States, with 33,380 calls in a single year. That's a call roughly every 16 minutes, every single day, all year. Skid Row and the surrounding blocks form one of the most demanding urban environments in American firefighting. High density, large transient population, real mixed occupancy stacked against each other, and a call volume that just never stops. Within that district sits a very specific stretch of streets. Got Boyd Streets, San Pedro Street, known locally as the Toy District, or more bluntly, Bong Row. Block after block of wholesale cannabis accessory shops, vape suppliers, and smoke product distributors, operating in a legal grey zone that opened up after California legalized cannabis. Here's the detail that should probably stop you in your tracks. The building itself, at 327 East Boyd Street, had never been inspected by LAFD. No records, no history. In a district full of businesses stockpiling flammable and hazardous materials, this building was invisible to the people whose job it is to know what's inside it. That's the stage. Now let's look at the building itself. Picture a single-story commercial building, about 25 feet wide, 110 feet long, roughly 8 meters by 30 meters for our UK audience. The footprint of a decent-sized warehouse. Cinder block walls, a roof carried a prefabricated wooden I-beam joists. Inside it was split into two businesses, Unit A and Unit B, divided by a partition wall of timber studs and drywall. Sounds sensible, except that wall only reached the bottom of the roof. Above head height, there's no separation at all. The void ran the full width of the building, uninterrupted. 2 units with one shared fire compartment sitting above everyone's heads. Round the back, an unpermitted addition, about 18 feet deep with a lower roofline supported by lightweight open web bar joist trusses, widely regarded as the most collapse-vulnerable roof construction in commercial firefighting. At the front, 2 rolling steel doors, one per unit, both locked. And nowhere in this building was there a sprinkler head or a suppression system, nothing. The occupants themselves, smoke toques, a butane, honey oil and cannabis accessory wholesaler, along with Green Butter and Biohazard, both marijuana-related businesses. Inside, floor-to-ceiling commercial racking, glass jars, candles, vapes, pre-rolled cones, and hidden among their ordinary retail stock, hundreds of butane cartridges and thousands of 8-gram nitrous oxide charges. Nitrous oxide, for anyone that doesn't know, neither did I before I looked into it, it's an oxidizer. Starts releasing its contents at temperatures as low as 106 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 41 degrees Celsius for us in the UK. Early stage temperatures in that building were already running between 400 and over 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 200 to nearly 500 degrees Celsius. That building was already armed before a single fire engine turned a wheel. No hazmat signage, no smoking signs, no declaration to the fire department, no inspection, ever.
It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighters podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behaviour, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
So before we get into the response, I want to explain a couple of things about how LA Fire Department operate, because some of this will be unfamiliar if you're in the UK or you're outside the US system. So in Los Angeles, there are two primary types of fire operators you'll need to understand for this incident. So we have an engine company, what we in the UK would call a pump, carries water, hose, provides the fire attack. Its job is to get water on the fire. And then you have a truck company. So think of that as our aerial or our turntable ladder. It carries ladders, forcible entry tools, chainsaws, ventilation equipment. It doesn't carry water. Its job is to access, search, ventilate roof operations. So when you hear truck in this incident debrief, when you hear truck in the story, think aerial ladder and roof team. A light force, which you're going to hear as well, is an LAFD specific combination. It's a truck and an engine working together as a paired unit. A battalion chief is kind of the equivalent of our station manager or watch manager moving up, and the senior officer commanding at the tactical level on the fireground. Now, and this bit is important, LAFD also use a standardized system for identifying sides of the building. Think about this when we do sectorization in the UK. So if you're not familiar with it, goes like this. The front face, the main face side of the building is Alpha. And then going clockwise from there, the left side is Bravo, the rear side is Charlie, and the right-hand side, as you look at the building, will be Delta. So Alpha's the front, Charlie's the back. And throughout this episode, when I say Alpha, I mean the front of the building facing the street. And when I say Charlie's side, I mean the rear. So keep that picture in your head because it matters. Right, let's get into the incident. 1826. Metro Fire Communications, the LA equivalent of our control, takes the first of several emergency calls. Smoke from a building on Boyd Street. 1827, 1 minute later, resources are rolling. We've got 2 battalion command teams, a truck company, a light force, 3 engine companies, a hazmat squad, a paramedic rescue, and an 800 series rescue ambulance. 3 minutes later, the first units arrive. 2 minutes 30 seconds after the dispatch. A single-story commercial building, moderate smoke from the Alpha side, being the front. Business is closed. There's no reported life risk. First arriving truck captain calls an offensive mode, meaning an active interior firefighting strategy as opposed to a defensive or exterior-only operation. It takes command as Boyd Incident Commander at 1831. Shortly after, the first battalion chief arrives and they assume command. So picture the scene. We've got a low commercial building, smoke, no visible flame, kind of cool, crews handle routinely, maybe dozens of times a year depending where you are. Nothing about the exterior is screaming huge danger that we shouldn't expect. The hazmat squad arrives and is placed on standby. In hindsight, having looked at the rest of the debrief, that single decision is maybe one of the most significant details in this entire incident, but we're going to come back to it. Tactics are already assigned. People move quickly, truck to the roof, engine 1 to fire attack, engine 2 are backing it up, and engine 3 are covering the delta exposure, which is the right-hand side. Standard plan for a building that looked like nothing more than a stubborn smoke job. Let's go inside the building. So forcible entry tools start on the roll shutter doors. Both have internal slide-locked bars. Crews try Unit B first. The locks won't give. They cut it 3-sided instead. In 1833, they got into Unit A. What the fire attack finds inside the warehouse is floor-to-ceiling product in commercial racking. An aisle roughly 42 inches wide, barely a meter, barely enough room to move in full fire kit. Boxes are on the floor, a metal 6-step rolling ladder blocking the middle of the aisle, and a melted candle wax underfoot. Pallets are stacked against the rear everywhere. At 1834, fire attack radios the incident commander. We've made access. We have floor to ceiling of product. We're trying to find an entrance. It's going to be a real hard one for us to get in. We have a moderate amount of smoke coming out of the Alpha side, being the front, of both entrances. The incident commander asked the right question. What's the fire load? What kind of business? The answer, floor-to-ceiling product, a smoke and dispensary shop. The seat of the fire isn't visible at this point. Crews believe it's above the mezzanine toward the rear. An inspection cut through the roof produces pressurized brown smoke immediately. That's a building telling you exactly what kind of fire you're dealing with. Meanwhile, the backup fire attack crew has pushed ahead of the primary crew inside Unit A, and 5 firefighters are now working deep inside, applying minimum water because nobody can find the fire that they're meant to be fighting.
I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Up top, the truck crew on the roof, the aerial team, climbs the aerial ladder with chainsaws and roof kits. Their job is vertical ventilation, cutting holes in the roof to release heat, smoke, and the fire gases, and to give the interior crews a better working environment. At 1833, the apparatus operator, the driver, and the aerial specialist cut an inspection hole near the Alpha Bravo corner, which is the front left of the roof. Pressurized brownish-grey smoke, sometimes clear, billows straight out. 1 minute later, the decision is made to cut the main ventilation hole 65 to 75 feet back over the alpha side. That's roughly 20 meters deep into the building, almost directly over where the seat of the fire is believed to be. The first hole, 8 feet by 2 feet, straddling both units. 2 minutes later, Roof Division radios the incident commander. You have exposures to the Bravo and Delta side. That's to the left and right of the neighboring buildings. We have a hole opened up. We're getting heavy fire out of the hole towards the Charlie side, which is now towards the rear. Fire is venting through the roof, and the roof crew tries to direct the interior fire attack team, aiming streams at the ceiling to the Charlie side and the rear. But the message doesn't land cleanly, and the incident commander has to relay it. The hole is widened twice, eventually reaching 8 feet by 6 feet, and the apparatus operator starts a second hole 6 feet back from the first hole. At the same time, the crew of the ambulance hauls a 1 3/4 inch hose onto the roof by a drop bag, putting a straight stream into the smoke and fire pouring out. The roof team is now actively fighting the fire from above, but there's a question underneath every action they're taking, one nobody up there can yet answer. What exactly are they venting out? This is the part of the story you probably need to sit with, because the building had been sending signals from the very first cuts, and now it starts screaming them. Remembering all of this is from a detailed debrief that people know in retrospect. Would we have done different? Likely not. We're here to learn the lessons from it. At 1838, extending that second hole, the roof team hears it. Loud, popping noises rapidly climbing in frequency and volume. Then a jet-like rumble. The kind of sound you feel through your boots as much as you hear. The roof starts to vibrate. The apparatus operator makes the call. Time to go. The roof team backs off the hole, moving from the alpha side, which is the front, and the aerial ladder. At the same time, the interior fire attack team radios they'll be delayed reaching the seat of the fire. Control tells the incident commander 10 minutes have elapsed. The Engine 1 engineer, the driver of the pump, runs up, grabs his company officer and says, "We got fire, heavy, black smoke coming from the back." The officer steps into the street to look. The roof company officer then calls the incident commander from the roof. No response. A crew member looks over at the parapet and broadcasts, emergency traffic, and then, at 18:38 and 42 seconds, 11 minutes and 4 seconds into the incident, the building explodes. Dirty black smoke punches out of Unit A, straight across the street, and then that smoke ignites. A 30-foot wall of flame blowtorches across the road and up into the sky. Almost simultaneously, fire erupts from the rolling steel door on the Charlie side, which is the rear, and expands into a rolling fireball. Thousands of nitrous oxide charges rupture, and small cylinders firing through the roof and out the Charlie side like shrapnel. Inside, The environment goes black in an instant. Fire wraps around the interior crews. Multiple firefighters shout, "Get out!" Crawling over boxes and shelving past the rolling step ladder, still blocking the aisle, trying to find the door. On the roof, the team descends an aerial ladder in strict order, last of all the company officer. The fireball reaches 60 feet above the roofline, scorching the truck and the rear of the engine below. It lasts approximately 45 seconds before receding back into the structure. Captain Victor Aguirre is on that roof. He's the last one off. He is engulfed in a fireball as he climbs onto the aerial ladder. Now, the building didn't ambush these crews. It's a fast-moving incident. The building was sending signals it told them again and again from the very first cut. But the warning came fast, and within seconds, the window to act was closed. A firefighter on the street transmits "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday." The incident commander activates emergency tones for 7 seconds, then broadcasts "Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. All companies off, out the building. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. All companies, we have a Mayday situation." A battalion chief calls for more resources. "We're going to need a lot more companies. We're going to need a lot more resources." At 18:39 and 20 seconds, the incident commander orders all companies into a personnel and crew accountability report. Essentially, a full roll call, checking every firefighter on scene is accounted for. What follows is controlled chaos in its most intense. Firefighters perform immediate rescues of their own colleagues. PPE is stripped from the most severely burned because burned flesh needs cooling faster than it needs to stay covered. Handlines are turned onto injured firefighters before transport. 3 ambulances respond, a medical group, a dedicated treatment and triage function, and they stand up at the intersection of Boyd and San Pedro. 11 burned firefighters are transported to LAC and USC medical centers. A 12th is treated and released later for minor extremity injuries. Firefighters, police officers, and first responders are now stepping into environments wired with more high voltage than ever before. Everything from electric vehicles to solar panels feeding direct current through compromised structures, overhead power lines, and illicit drugs factories with improvised lethal bypasses. Any single strike in the wrong place in this type of environment can turn things fatal very quickly, and that is exactly why we've partnered with Jafco. You already know who Jafco are. They have been relied upon for decades for sturdy, get-the-job-done equipment, and they are not resting on their laurels. They are evolving to face the challenges first responders are handling today through their insulated tool range. These are purpose-built for the scenarios where contact with hidden electrical hazards isn't just possible, it is increasingly likely. Their insulated tools are engineered for real-world abuse and use, designed to keep firefighters, police officers, and all first responders alive in environments where electrification is outpacing policy, equipment, and training. And you know this. This is the kind of innovation our sector needs and the kind of investment organizations should be stepping up to support if we are serious about protecting first responders from fatal consequences. So a massive thank you to Jafco for backing the podcast and backing the crews on the ground. Go check them out, learn what they're doing, and bring that conversation into your service, because this isn't about the future, it's about right now. The green sheet, which is the LAFD's equivalent or operational debrief report, used after serious injuries or near misses, which is where a lot of this has come from, flags radio discipline as a problem here. During the Mayday, the channel became cluttered. There were attempts to contact control that shouldn't have happened at that moment. Transmissions were missed, and when 12 firefighters are down and a major fire is still burning, the radio is a lifeline. Discipline on that channel isn't optional. At peak, more than 230 LAFD firefighters are on scene. And at 8 minutes past 8, 1 hour 42 minutes after the first call, the fire is declared extinguished. If you walk through where the burns landed and you start to understand how PPE systems protect us and where they don't. Roof and interior crews sustain burns to the head, ears, hands, arms, back, legs, and buttocks. Listen to that again. Those are the interface points. Wrist gaps, where glove meets sleeve, the overlap, where hood meets collar, boot stops, trouser hems. These are the places where PPE systems are joined, not sealed. That's where the fireball of this intensity finds its way in. Firefighter Stephen Osterberg suffered third-degree burns across 30% of his body. Captain Victor Maguire, on the roof, the last man off, suffered severe burns over much of his body. His hands sustained 30-degree burns so severe that the damage required partial amputation of each of his fingers. He underwent 25 surgeries, and he spent 65 days in the burns unit at LAC and USC Medical Center. Released on the 21st of July 2020, he is permanently disfigured and disabled. As of 2022 court proceedings, only 2 of the 11 seriously injured firefighters had returned to work. Only 2 of the 11 seriously injured firefighters returned to work. And this is not a statistic. This is an experienced watch commander, effectively, with more than 20 years of fire service. He's a husband, father of 2, a man doing his job on that roof as he was trained, making sure his crew got down before he did. So let's break down what actually happened inside that building from the reports and the fire investigations, because understanding this is kind of the whole point of this episode. We want to take some learnings from this. We don't want this to happen again. So the fire was ventilation limited. It had been smouldering inside a tightly packed, floor-to-ceiling, fuel-loaded with very little oxygen. Think of that like a fire in a sealed room. It's burning, it's hot, it's generating enormous quantities of flammable gases and carbon monoxide, but it's being held in check by the lack of air. That pressurized brown smoke from the first inspection cut was the building telling us, it is an oxygen-hungry, underventilated, and it's running hot. It is waiting. Now bring in the nitrous oxide. Internationally, it's classified as an oxidizing gas, category 1. Its hazard statement, H270, reads, may cause or intensify fire, oxidizer. It also carries H280 and contains gas under pressure, may explode if heated. So this isn't a fuel. Nitrous oxide doesn't burn by itself. What it does do is release oxygen. Materials that won't burn in ordinary air will burn in the presence of nitric oxide. It releases its contents at temperatures as low as 106 degrees Fahrenheit, which is only 41 degrees Celsius. And at the temperatures already present, as I've said, 200 to 500 degrees Celsius, thousands and thousands of 8-gram cylinders were already cooking. As the building heated, those cylinders released their contents progressively. Every release pumped more oxidizer into an already fuel-rich atmosphere of carbon dioxide, butane vapor, and hydrocarbons, all sitting already at or above their flammable range. Then ventilation changed the equation. Forcible entry on the alpha side, the front, 2 holes cut in the roof, fresh oxygen introduced into a fuel-rich, oxidized, charged environment. Those conditions just crossed the threshold. The exact ignition source? Uncertain. But the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, who are the federal investigation agency, found surveillance footage showing a worker with a lit cigarette in the ignition area for 14 seconds before the fire started. They couldn't rule that out, and the fire was classified as accidental. But the ignition is almost besides the point, to be honest. What these firefighters faced was the consequence of what was already stored inside. It was a fuel-rich, oxygen-fed, pressure-building environment that was always heading towards a critical point. The floor-to-ceiling storage created what amounted to a nozzle, a branch, if you will, a narrow aisle, blocked exits, boxes stacked to the roofline. When the fireball found a way out, it was channeled through the Alpha portal at the front, 30 feet across the street, and simultaneously out through the Charlie side at the rear. That jet-like rumble that the roof crew heard was fire gases reaching velocity. The pressure event was beginning. That sound is the last warning you get before the event itself. The building was full of slow-release accelerants and oxidizers that crews just couldn't see, and they were never told about. Let's look at some of the system failures, because let's be honest about how this building got to this point, because the fire behavior only tells us half the story. There was no inspection. LAFD Fire Prevention had no record of 327 East Boyd Street ever. No hazmat declaration, hundreds of butane cartridges and thousands of nitrous oxide cylinders stored without permits, signage, or notification to the fire department. Now, that's not a slight on the fire department. There's no sprinkler system in any of the building housing surroundings of hazardous compressed gas. Remember where we are as well. Remember the time zone. We're May 2020. It was the 3rd month of a pandemic lockdown, and inspections citywide had been badly disrupted. As expected, this was an unknown of unknowns. The first huge global pandemic. And that context matters because it doesn't excuse years of buildings sitting off the radar in a district known for exactly these kind of hazards. Let's look at how it ended legally. The building owner, Steve Sugdo Lee, faced 163 criminal misdemeanor charges, theoretically up to 68 years in jail, and he entered a judicial diversion program, and he paid $15,000, which is his share of $125,000 in investigation costs. If he complies for 2 years, every charge is dismissed. The operators of Smoked Tokes and Green Butter pleaded no contest to 4 municipal violations and paid just over $100,000 between them and ceased operating in the area. No one went to jail. 12 firefighters were injured, 1 permanently disfigured, with partial amputations of both hands. And the outcome of the entire criminal process was a diversion program, and in the large context, a small fine. Right, the operational lessons. What does this mean to us? And let's talk about what you and I can actually do with this. When the incident commander asked what kind of business this was, that was exactly the right kind of question. The answer, dispensary supply, should have maybe changed the threat picture. A training bulletin did already exist within LAFD of butane, honey, oil, recognition, and hazards. That's in the debrief. So think about your own patch. How many similar businesses are on it like this? Vape shops, smoke suppliers. Is there any other kind of shops for you? Maybe beauty product wholesalers? Do you know what's in them? Does your watch know what's in them? Egress planning. So we want aggressive firefighting. We want to move with intention. But before you go deep into a building, always keep that egress clear. Know how you're coming out. A 42-inch aisle, which is barely a meter. A roller ladder blocking it. Firefighters crawling over boxes to escape. So egress for us shouldn't be a secondary as an unknown. You know, it should be the primary consideration. If you can't visualize how you're going to get out before you go in, then we're not ready to go in. Think about the sounds and the cues that we heard through that incident. Popping, escalating in frequency, a jet-like rumble, a vibrating roof. These are our emergency withdrawal cues, which of course eventually happened there. And the operator who recognized them and pulled his team back saved lives that night, without a doubt. Would you be thinking the same thing? Would you have the agency? Would you have the confidence to shout up on that? Are you trained to recognize those cues before you're feeling them, not after? Let's close with some thoughts. Captain Victor Aguirre went up that aerial ladder last. He made sure his crew got down before he did. He was engulfed in a fireball. That was the direct consequence of choices made by other people long before he ever pulled up outside that building. Choices made by people who stored hundreds of gas bottles in an unsupervised warehouse with no sprinklers, no signage, no permits, no inspection, and no thought to contact the fire department, and no thought for what would happen if that building ever caught fire. There's a documentary produced on this by the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation in 2022, and it's called Boyd Street. It's really, really good. Go and take a look at it. And again, I've pulled some elements from that. It's told by the people who were there. It's not comfortable viewing, but it was never meant to be. As we've said, the fire was classified as accidental, a cigarette maybe, a building full of flammable gases and oxidisers certainly. An industry operating in a regulatory grey zone, and a fire department that was so overstretched it hadn't inspected these buildings. This type of incident is not an inevitable tragedy, but we've got to learn from these, so maybe it's a preventable one moving forwards. That's the hardest part of the story that we've got to sit with, really. Every property, every building job, every commercial job that we attend, especially in a district where you know what these businesses deal in, ask the question before you go through that door: what actually is inside here? What does this place really sell? What is the building already telling us? The building at 327 East Boyd Street was never silent. It was talking to us from the moment that first inspection produced pressurized brown smoke, pushing out under pressure. That's the debrief for Boyd Street, and I'll see you next time.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.